Your expectations and your reality from this workshop, I just wanted to make clear that this workshop is not a counseling workshop. This is not a substitution for real counseling. This is not a resource workshop where we'll be telling you where to go and which person to meet. This workshop is only for one reason and one reason alone: to start a conversation, to start a discussion about mental health, and specifically mental health of the queer community. Even if you do not identify as queer of some kind or the other, you will see, I mean, mental health is mental health. Correct? It's not like we have special minds or special brains as queer. I sometimes believe we are special, but I don't think we have as special minds compared to anyone else. My troubles are exactly the same as your troubles. Correct? All right, can we have the others? Next slide, please. Okay, so before we talk about anything, let's talk about what is first aid. We're talking about emotional first aid, correct? What is first aid? And this is not a class, so no wrong answers, anything. What is first aid?
The first thing we do.
The first thing we do, the definition is in the name. Okay. Do you have any opinions on first aid? And if you want to not be put on spot, just let me know, like, shut up.
Immediate help.
Immediate, the first, immediate. And what other things come to your mind when I say first aid?
This is not the, this is just need more treatment.
Got it, got it. Thank you.
You stop the bleeding till the expert comes in.
Fantastic.
Temporary relief. Temporary relief.
Temporary.
Prevent from the
Preventative. Temporary, preventative, first, immediate, not complete. Correct?
Tourniquet.
Sorry?
A tourniquet. A tourniquet.
A tourniquet. Fantastic. So, now, what's your name?
Lynn.
Lynn. If Lynn, for example, is a doctor, all right? And I'm just assuming your pronouns are she, her, and hers, so I'm just referring to you as she. And my assumption of your pronouns, please do not get offended by it. I would try to use as gender-neutral pronouns as possible. But if I end up using a wrong pronoun for you, please come and correct me later. Don't assume that I'm a bad human being. Right. So, really quickly, if Lynn is a doctor and somebody gets a cut, I'm not going to say, Lynn, you go on the side, let me give first aid. First aid is the first preventative thing that you do when proper medical care is not available. Correct? But that's important to understand. Proper medical care is not available. You don't, for example, do first aid in emergency hospital. You do first aid when you're not in the hospital. So we also understand that first aid is not hygiene. First aid is not nutrition. Brinda rightly said that it is what you do immediately. But to do first aid, you need to know basics of human body. To do first aid, you need to know what is the difference between a bone and a teeth. You need to know what is the difference between your ear and your nose. You're getting my point? So just basics of human body needs to be known for you to be good at first aid, correct? All right, I would really appreciate if some of you can just do that. I understand this and I don't understand this. So, right. So we know that first aid is really, really important, and almost all of us need to know first aid, correct? We cannot go to Google at that time when the first aid is required. Next slide, please. In the same way, emotional first aid is the idea that what do you do to yourself and others when you experience an emotional injury. We will talk about what an emotional injury is. The moment you're hurt, the moment you're sad, The moment something bad has happened, what do? I've been traveling around India, and I was in a hotel, and I burnt myself on one of those electric kettles, and I was not able to figure out, and by the time I did, but immediately I knew that I have to put this under water. But when we are hurt, we do not know immediately what to do. But to know what to do in emotional first aid, just like you need to know the basics of human body for first aid, you need to know basics of human emotions for first aid, correct? Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay, fantastic. Let's move forward. Now, what are emotions? Can anyone tell me?
Those are our emotions, those are the responses that come from our, like literally our brain.
Correct.
Feelings.
Feelings. Okay. Anyone?
Feelings that are on display.
Okay. Anyone?
Reaction to a particular thought.
Now, what do you think are emotions? Feelings. That's an emotion. So the whole idea is that, okay, let's do a quick exercise and name some emotions for me. Anger, the first thing. I love it. I think I should be paying you to come here. It's brilliant. Okay, anger.
I take those words.
Sorry?
I take those words.
Yeah.
Happiness.
Fear. Happiness, disgust, sadness, irritation, surprise, envy, melancholy, boredom, jealousy, excitement, love. Yeah, the love's the reason why we're here. Hate. So you realize that, okay, now that I've asked this question, I'm going to ask a question that seems very silly on its face, but it's very important. How many of you feel emotions? How many of you feel emotions? Okay. But we realize that our emotional vocabulary is very, very poor. According to psychology, and whenever I say according to psychology, I'm referring to some research. Trust me, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. According to psychology, throughout your life, you will have at least 34,000 different feelings. Sometimes you may not even be able to know them. Like, for example, regardless of what the type of pathogen, regardless of what kind of infection it is, it seems similar, but the microbe could be different. You're getting my point? And we do not know all kinds of infections in our body. I'm not saying feelings are infections. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are many things that happen to human body and human brain that we do not know of. And it's okay not to know all 34,000 feelings. It's okay. For example, a mother, when her sons and daughters are of age and leave the house, she will experience identity crisis. Because if she's not a mother anymore, who is she? There'll be an empty nest syndrome, there'll be postpartum depression, there'll be all different kinds of depressions, there's functional depression, but we are very rarely aware about these things. And some of us just live with 5 emotions, mad, sad, horny, hungry, happy, somehow. That's it. I don't need anything more. And that's also a valid life. It's just like one person who's traveled a little and experienced more world than one person who's never left. And then there are problems that somebody who keeps traveling and has no roots. That means there's so many feelings and I just do not know what to do with them. How many of you were educated about emotions at school? How many of you had emotional education as a subject? Okay, 4 people. How many of you were educated about emotions at home? by our parents, by like formally telling us what to do, what not to do when we're injured and how to talk. Again, very few of us. And that's okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Suddenly people leave the room thinking I'm not good enough. That's not what we're saying. So let's just identify the emotions on the screen. Which one do you think the first one is? What do you think the first one is? Anger. The second one? Fear. Okay, go on. It's from that movie Inside Out, if you haven't seen it. Happy? No, it's disgust. It's like, oh my God, I'm like, you're not even good enough for me. It's that emotion. Yeah. And the other one, sadness. Now, see, this is a movie made for kids. So, you know, they did not use sophisticated nuances. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide and discuss two questions. What is the difference between an emotion and a feeling? And what is wrong with this picture of emotion? As Lynn said, emotions are nothing else but the chemical response of your body towards anything that's happening outside your body or brain. For example, Shankar is talking to me and Shankar makes this face. So that is a trigger. Something has happened outside my body, but the thought inside my body is like, what? Why did he do that? Is something wrong with me? Does he not like me? Am I fat? What is going on? No one's ever going to love me, and things like that. I mean, of course, no one's ever going to love me. Is also like, sometimes it's so quick that we don't even know what went on in my head, and why did I give Shankar's face so much importance, or the facial thing, or someone loses, I lose someone dies, I'm broken up with, I have failure. We will be discussing that slide as well. So emotions are the chemical happenings inside your body, and the awareness of that chemical reaction inside your body is a feeling. For example, joy is an emotion, happiness is a feeling. I'm not teaching a class on spirituality, so I'm not going to be like, oh, but happiness is when you go. No. Academically speaking, happiness is the experience of joy. Academically speaking, that's it. Joy is the feeling. Happiness. Emotion. Sadness is a feeling. Sadness is an emotion. Depression is a condition of awareness of that sadness. Feeling, correct. And depression is also a medical condition. Like, for example, I'll give you, how many of you own dogs at home? How many of you have pets? How many of you have seen dogs? Okay, good. People looked so confused. What is a dog? I don't know. Right. So the difference between the way a dog gets depressed and a human being gets depressed is very, very important to note. When a dog's primary caregiver, whoever gives him food, or whoever he or she, I'm gendering the dog, whoever he or she feels comfortable with is missing, scared it'll go hide in places and blah, 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 refuse to eat the food and will not be interested in playing if he was interested in playing earlier and all of that. But the moment the primary caregivers or his owner comes back, he's fine. You will never go home to look at a dog sitting with a Jack Daniels in his hand, looking outside the window and thinking, what's going on with my life? Like, like a dog would never sit there and go, why does he come home late every day? My food is cold, he never listens to me anymore. Like, the dog only feels pain, physical pain, and the dog does not have imagination enough to say that you don't love me. He just knows that if you're not there, I'm going to die because I don't know how to get my food without you. We are the only species who can think about ourselves. No other species can do that we know of. Every other species, like for example, for a human baby after 3 months, a human baby looks into the mirror and knows that it is him. or her. It is it. But an animal, a dog or a cat looks in the mirror and gets scared that it's another dog or an animal. You would very rarely see a dog combing his hair. It just doesn't happen. Have we understood the difference between an emotion and a feeling?
Yeah.
An emotion is the chemical response of your body to anything happening to it, and a feeling is the awareness of it. That's why there are 34,000 different kinds of feelings, but very few emotions. Emotions are very basic. Feelings on the top of them are very, very complicated. Now, what is wrong with this picture is the second question I want to ask.
It's a caricature.
Caricature?
The second one. The
Yeah.
second one is not clear whether it is
Fear or no?
fear,
Okay.
inhibition.
Okay.
And
Nev-
it's to assume that you react or respond to an emotion the same way. Like that anger will only look like that, or happiness will only look like that. But humans may respond differently. than
Okay. So we may experience these emotions.
between feelings and emotions.
We may experience this differently. What do you think is wrong with this, sir? Yes, you. Yeah. He was so surprised. What do you think is wrong with this? You can sit and... Okay, I think what's wrong with this is it's privileging one emotion over others.
Yeah.
It's privileging joy over every other emotion.
Joy is glowing.
Yeah? It's in essence telling us that pain is bad, always, and joy is good, always. It's privileging joy over every other emotion, that joy is the only thing we should all feel. Joy is the only thing we should ever experience. Joy should be the only thing that should actually become a feeling. But that's not true. You require pain so much more than you require joy. Pain is a better teacher than joy and pleasure could ever be. Pain demands details that joy will never demand. For example, when you're in love with someone, you focus on them for sure, but everything is right and you ignore all the red flags. That person is the one for me, and then I ignore everything. But pain, for example, if you're jealous, which is a species of pain, you demand details. So you left there at 10:25, you've arrived here at 10:50. What were you doing in the middle? I don't think it takes that long to come. Pain requires far more details. Pain will teach you far more about life than pleasure will ever do. Does that make sense to you? For example, fear. My grandparents, when India partitioned, my grandparents came from Pakistan to India, but they never got onto the train. You remember has anyone read about the trains? Train from Pakistan where they were killing everyone and we were killing people and sending them there. They were killing people and sending here, blah, blah, blah. We've still not learned from history. But that was happening, and my grandparents were very afraid of getting on the train. Because of their fear, I'm here. If they got on the trains, they would die and I'd never be born. Fear is very good. But optimal fear is good. Optimal joy is good, not too much joy. Too much joy never makes you, like, who experiences boundless joys? The ones who are on drugs. People on drugs. For no reason they experience joy. See, I am not a spiritual leader. I will not tell you joy is the only emotion that you should experience. You are complex human beings and you should have all different kinds of emotional reactions. Have you ever met anyone who's positive about everything in their lives?
Yeah.
Like they like everyone and they say nice things about everything, and they're so nice to hang out with for 1 hour, and then they're so annoying. And you're like, how do I deal with you? You're so fake. So the idea is that your life will have all kinds of emotions and many different kinds of feelings, and you cannot control them. You can only manage and live with them and do emotional first aid. That's all that you can do. Correct? Do you want to take up his job now? Okay, okay. Now, if you are in a jungle, now imagine all of yourself as cavemen, which would require you to imagine yourselves naked. But as cavemen, you're sitting there and you have leaves around you, right? And you want to hunt an animal, or you want to pluck a berry. You want to pluck a fruit or hunt an animal, and right next to you there's a bush. There's a bush that rumbles. Now, is it in your interest to imagine it's a lion, or is it in your interest to say, yeah, it could be wind, it could be breeze? What's in your interest?
Lion.
Lion. Because if it's not a lion, you're still safe. But if you imagined that it is wind, breeze, and if it is a lion, then you are dinner. So it was in our interest to act quickly. You could not like sit there and philosophize. Do you know language actually did not develop so we could do philosophy and mathematics? Language developed so we could gossip. It was in my interest sitting in a cave to talk about how I got this meat. What did your aunt do? What did your uncle do? And like imagine, this is a very mean thing to do, but imagine one of your relatives who's not very well educated. Imagine, you've already imagined. Who's not very well educated, who's not known to be the most intelligent person in your family, but is very, very good at gossiping. So the idea is that their language skills do not need to be profound, do not need to be philosophical for them to talk about, because that is the basic function of language. To learn. I don't have to die because my uncle already died. I need to hear that story to learn. Correct? So, if emotions have been put into us by nature, if emotions have been put into us by God, as you would like to say, are they perfect? Is the question. Because they were inside us for survival. If you did not get anxious, you will not, like for example, people who get anxious today would have been superstars in our caveman days, because they'd be the one thinking, is everyone okay? Are you coming with us? Is the cave shut or not shut? So they would be the superstars because of whom we will all survive. But anxiety today is very annoying to us. Is it okay? Like mums do this all the time. Is your lunch packed? Are you eating it? Are you not? Like calling you on and on and on. And you're like, Mom, please stop. I can take care of myself. But this mom would have been a superstar in cave times. But we're not living in caves anymore. So do you think emotions are perfect?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Emotions, okay, let me ask you, that was a separate question, not this. Am I? Okay. Okay, are emotions perfect? But I haven't asked perfect for what? Correct? So, I need a volunteer. Yeah. Okay. Okay, what's your name, sir? Shankar. Santana.
Santana Kumar.
Okay, so Shankar and Santana, now you have to just imagine, mostly you don't have to do anything. Santana and Shankar are just talking to each other, okay? What animal are you most afraid of? Or reptile or anything like that? Lion, lizard, what are you most afraid of? Huh? Lion. He's like just example lion. So they're both talking to each other, and he, just to pull a prank on him, he's like, Santana, don't move. There's a lion behind you. And he's showing real fear as well. Now, whether there's a lion or not, thank you. That was all I needed, thank you. Whether there's a lion or not, doesn't matter. He will feel real fear. Feelings are no guide to reality. Can never be any guide to reality. Feelings can only tell you what the present moment feels like, not what the present moment is. And that is the beauty and the pain of human emotions. That the stronger a human emotion, the more we believe that it is true. For example, if I am jealous, I believe you have cheated on me. If I am angry, I believe you have stolen that watch from me. Because human brain cannot believe that something dramatic is happening inside me and nothing outside. Drama needs to correlate. And we queer people know one or two things about drama. So the human brain cannot believe that, always believes that something dramatic inside means something dramatic outside. But and this is called emotional reasoning. In psychology, it's called emotional reasoning. That you say, it is because I feel so. But this is the seat of human aggression, human prejudice, and a lot of human things that are not very productive. For example, emotional reasoning. When a woman gets raped or molested, the first question that asks, not just by other men, by other women as well, is what was she wearing? And what was she doing there at 10:30 in the night? That's the first question that people ask. Why? Because your dress and the nature of your appearance in time excited the man. What was he supposed to do? Because he felt like it, he did it. And you were responsible for him to feel like it. Another example. Community X. I don't like community X. I'm not going to name any community. I don't like community X. And I always have these weird feelings around them. I was like, no. They look different and they are different and they are not me. I don't know how to... Basically what you're saying is you're uncomfortable. But what you're saying also is because I'm uncomfortable, they are untrustworthy. Emotional reasoning is so problematic, but we do it all the time. I feel this because of you. So our walnuts are faulty. They're not. They are the only walnuts we have. They are the only organs we have, but they are not to be trusted 100%. Then what do we do? Yeah, can you go back to But then what do we do? Our grace lies in logic and facts, which we can check with each other. For example, I live in a marriage that is abusive. He beats me up, he comes home drunk. I know in most of my stories only the male person is the villain, but he beats me up, he comes home drunk, he doesn't listen to me, but I stay in that marriage. Why? Because I love him. So you're using an emotion to act. Okay? Now the other extreme is this man is tall and upper caste and upper class and earns in 6 figures, marry him. And when I'm giving this example in India, I also add, he's fair. He's fair, marry him. The logic is there that he might be able to take care of you, his social standing would be good. He earns money, but you're like, I'm not attracted to him. We can't be completely logic and completely emotional. So Now, what is the example of marrying logic with emotion? Is that in the first example I say, listen, I love you, but I cannot be with you because you beat me up. I will love you from a distance. I will try to get you all the help you need, but I cannot be in the abusive relationship. I'm not helping you or myself. I'm enabling your behavior. And the other one, I could say, okay, he's all tall and nice and handsome and fair and everything. Let me go out on a few dates and see how I feel. So this is marrying logic with emotions. Logic plus emotion is rational. Rational doesn't mean all logic. You won't do anything you don't like. You won't do it. You're human beings. Even if you stay in abusive relationships, you're getting something out of it. Whether it's dignity, whether it's honor, whether it is like I want to be the good wife and I want to be the good person, and you're getting something out of it. You won't do anything that you don't like. Okay? Shall we? Is it clear what's logic plus emotion, blah, blah, blah? Okay. Now, if you want to understand anything about human behavior, leave alone just human emotions, this is one diagram that explains everything about humans. Or about most animals perhaps, but mostly humans. One is that we are different from each other because of our biologies. Some people are more likely to get diabetes than others. Some people are just more likely to be depressed than others. Some people are more likely to be angry than others. Some people are more likely to be nervous than others. That's just my biology, that's how my brain is wired. Some people are gay, some people are not, some people are bisexual, some people are not. And bisexual also does not mean 50-50. It means all different things. Biology plays a very, very, very important role in almost everything you do. But that doesn't mean that biology is the only thing that makes us. Experience. What experiences have you had? Now, what is the word experience? What does it mean? Experience means from the time you were in your mother's womb to a second ago. Everything is an experience. This class is an experience, this lecture is an experience, your transit here was an experience. Everything changes you in some way or the other, small, negligible or big ways. For example, were you molested or not as a child? Were you beaten up as a child or not? Were you neglected as a child? Were you overparented as a child? Like today we have helicopter parents that are always like hovering over the child. You're getting my point? So obviously your parenting has a lot to do. Were you orphaned? Were you raised by someone else who were not your parents? Were your parents very abusive? All of this is an experience. For example, you are biologically anxious. Your nature is biologically you're anxious. Your experiences have been, a lot of people left me when I was young. Today, you're far more scared of losing people than anything else. But our grace lies in the green bubble, which is, can you see it there? The present choices that you make in thoughts and actions. The present choices. Is this diagram clear?
Yes.
Anyone who doesn't understand this?
Well, I have a question maybe.
Yeah.
Are all circles always the same size?
No. Depending on what you're talking about. For example, if I'm talking about my color of my eye, the biology circle would be the biggest. And prenatal exposure would be very tiny. And present thoughts and choices would be negligible.
Yeah.
Correct? So depending on what you're talking about. But we're talking about emotions, and most of these three circles are similar size, but this one is the biggest. Thoughts and actions are the biggest. Could we go further? Now, let's just understand one cycle of emotion. What causes emotions? It's very, very embarrassing to admit as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, we do not know what causes emotions. No one, not just I, no one knows what causes emotions. We know nature of emotions, we have theories about the purpose of emotions, but we do not know Where do emotions come from? We have no idea. We know the mechanics of emotions though. That's why psychotherapy, counseling is even possible. If we did not understand emotions at all, then psychotherapy would not be possible at all. It is like this. Now you've seen in Chennai as well, we have these really tall buildings, residential buildings, correct? So let's imagine one residential building catches fire. There are about 200 people who live there. 195 of them escape and come out. And they're looking at their houses being burned down. Do you think all 195 of them will react the same way? Why? Why? The trigger is the same. The trigger, what's happening outside their body, is the same.
Perception.
Perception.
Experiences in inherent nature.
What matters is they are predisposed to feeling anxiety or...
Okay, their predispositions, their biologies are different. So we've understood they're different, but and their biology is different, their experiences are different. But what's in their hand is that they're thinking differently about it as well. For example, one guy has completely collapsed. He's passed out, he's blacked out, and what could be going through his brain? I've lost everything. I mean, I don't know I don't even have insurance. What's going to happen? It was my life's savings and blah, 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 and I've lost everything. Okay? His feeling would be very, very deeply sad. Deeply sad. He's thinking about it in a way that's making him feel deeply, deeply sad. And that changes his behavior. Behavior essentially is anything that the camera can pick up. But now there is a girl who's actually standing on the side, girl or a lady, whatever you want to call her. She's trying really hard not to smile. We're talking about a building being burnt and 195 of the 200 residents standing outside the building looking at it. Some people are distressed, but there's this one lady outside who's trying very hard not to smile. What do you think she might be thinking?
Oh, he deserves this.
Yeah, I never liked that husband anyway. Lynn, you should be giving this workshop. So essentially her reality of thoughts is way different from everyone else's, and her feeling is slight joy and her behavior is that what you can observe. Now let's see in depression. We are here to talk about depression, anxiety and loneliness, and how does this cycle look like in depression, anxiety and loneliness. Most depressive thoughts, I'm not going to give you symptoms, I'm not allowed to. I don't want people diagnosing themselves. This is not about giving you symptoms, okay? What is the thought process in depression is, I'm not good enough, my life is not good enough, whatever is going on with me is not good enough. Feeling of deep sadness. Behavior, I isolate myself. I don't go out. And while I'm sitting in the house, I'm thinking about the same thing, feeling the same thing, and then behaving again the same way. It becomes a cycle. And then it becomes clinical depression. If this cycle lasts for more than 2 years, you are on paper. That is a main difference between fear and anxiety. Anxiety is always about the future. Future going wrong. Something will go wrong. Something will go wrong. If I go outside the house, that will go wrong. That leads to the feeling of restlessness. Anxiety is very closely associated with restlessness. I'm always looking here, and then my behavior is like, I'm toppling things over, and then giving myself all the more evidence. See, things are going wrong, I told you things are going wrong. So one of my clients was really, really, really afraid of lifts, elevators. And he wanted to be, because he was on the 15th floor, and he would just not be able to take the elevator, and he was sent to me by his boss. he would always have to leave the house 2 hours earlier to reach anywhere. He would always be anxious that I'm going to... And I had to figure out first whether it was a fear of closed spaces or whether it was a fear of a particular closed space that moves. That was a differentiation that I had to do. Then you expose the client to the trigger. The trigger is elevator here, right? So we took 5 elevator rides on 5 different sessions. And one time the elevator actually broke down. And he was like, see, I told you it's going to happen. So basically what happened was, his thinking was that it will go out of his hand and he won't be able to deal with it. But I said, yes, it happened, but you and I are here talking about it. You're alive. And what if I died? I said, then you won't have to worry about it. You died, you died. See, for a psychotherapist, we are not afraid the moment somebody uses the word suicide and death and all that. We're not afraid. We sit in a room. I've been sitting in my room for 9 years listening to people saying, I want to kill myself. I was like, how have you thought about it? And then you realize that killing yourself is a thought that comes to almost everyone's brain. It is when it starts converting into an action that is a problem. When you start preparing for it. You're getting my point? So now you've understood the patterns between depression and anxiety. So the other important thing to understand about depression and anxiety is that we can have a problem that in psychology is called a meta-emotional problem, which is I have an emotion of sadness and then I'm sad about being sad. Like, why am I so sad? What's wrong with me? You're a human being, nothing's wrong with you. So I have to first address the meta-emotional problem. You could be angry about being sad. Why am I always sad? Why am I not joyous like others? Because again, joy, like we said, okay, I'm just going to... Joy has been privileged over other emotions. So other emotions, we've associated fear and inferiority with other emotions. Depression is mostly... Yes? You have a question? Oh, you were just wiping off your sweat. See, for me that was a trigger and my thinking was, it's a question. And my feeling was excitement, there's a question. And then behavior was like, what's the question? But this happens at a lightning speed and we don't even know that this is what's happening. Now, but we clearly know that emotional injuries are very different from physical injuries. Physical injuries could be because of the things that we do. But emotional injuries are inflicted and sustained because of our thinking, our imagination. We are the only creatures on the planet that tell stories. Like for example, every other creature has some or the other kind of sound that we know of. We are the only ones who have music. Other creatures may have pitch, timbre, bass, and all the other things that go with sound. Sound has rhythm and pitch and timbre and bass. We are the only ones who have complete music. So other animals have some kind of language, but we are the only ones that are able to tell stories. And it's through our stories that my psychology teacher used to say, it's in your ability to tell stories that your magnificence and your misery lies. Your misery and your magnificence lies in the very fact that the way you're able to tell stories about yourself, about what's going on. Again, remember the Jack Daniels and the dog. Okay. Can we move? Okay. What are the common emotional injuries that we have? No. What are the common emotional injuries that we have? We will all have failure. Nobody here, regardless of how much money you have or how little you have, you will experience failure. Your you may or may not lose your job. Your marriage may or may not end. Your kids may or may not start hating you. You're getting my point? You will experience failure every now and then. Right? Like for example, I had to already think before coming here, how is this lecture going to be? Will people understand me or not? And will this... So I'm already imagining the failure of this. But this is automatic. I just have to manage it. I can't be like, I cannot imagine this, I cannot imagine this. I'm not a robot. You getting my point? Now, rejection is really... We are going to spend a lot of time on this slide. Rejection. How many of you have ever experienced rejection? Okay. All right. Most of us. Okay. So the idea is, yes, do you have a question? Okay. The idea is rejection, loneliness and heartbreak are the worst emotional injuries that you will ever experience in your life. Ever. Now, how do psychotherapists study rejection? And I will name this one guy called Guy Winch. He wrote a book called Emotional First Aid. He has studied rejection like no one else has. And this is the joke that I'm going to tell you is his joke as well. Like for example, we as psychologists, we can't be with our research assistants standing in a bar waiting for someone to break up. I'm like, he's been broken up. We go quick, give him a questionnaire. Let's see how he feels. We can't do that. We can't do that. How do we recreate rejection in a laboratory? How do we recreate rejection in a laboratory? Is, let's say, the 5 people sitting in front of me here, all of them are my research assistants other than Lynn. But Lynn does not know that everyone else is my research assistant. And Lynn comes in thinking that they are participants too. Okay? So then we play this little game. We start passing on the ball. And what's your name?
Bilahari.
Bilahari. Bilahari forgets, forgets on purpose to pass the ball to Lynn once. Lynn thinks, okay, sure. I mean, she forgot, whatever. Then she forgets to pass the ball. And then it happens that they stop passing the ball to her completely. This is a very mean experiment. But this is how we recreate rejection in laboratory. And Lynn starts thinking, what's going on? Why am I not getting the ball? And then we give questionnaire to Lynn, to figure out what. So we do not know much about rejection, but we know few things about rejection. First, the thing that we know about rejection is that rejection and loneliness and heartbreak hurt exactly the way physical pain hurts. The neural pathways in your brain, the nerves in your brain associated with physical pain is the same pathway with loneliness, rejection and heartbreak. And how do we know this? Is that, have you heard of, like, what are your popular painkillers here? Paracetamol, Combiflam, correct? Apparently, when you're in a very bad mood and you take a paracetamol, it soothes your mood. Do not take paracetamols to soothe your mood. Is not what I'm asking you to do. The next thing we know, that you've gone on your next date, your next first date, you packed paracetamol. You're like, hoga, rejection, hoga. We'll deal with it. Because this is, we self-medicate ourselves all the time through alcohol. Because alcohol also numbs the pain. When you're in a lot of physical pain and drunk, you don't feel that pain. It's only when you wake up. A lot of the times people have had sex when they've had alcohol and they've woken up thinking, why is my body hurting? Because you were doing things that you shouldn't be doing. There are a lot of knowing chuckles in this room. I like that. So the whole idea is that your loneliness, rejection and heartbreak in our human brain automatically takes on the neural pathways of physical pain for you to pay attention. Because if you were rejected by your tribe earlier, like even today in smaller villages, if the village head tells you you're out of the village, that means you will not get resources. You will not get water from the same well in the village. You will not get crops. You will die. In smaller villages. We live in concrete jungles, so that's not a threat for us. If Lynn starts hating me, please don't. If she starts hating me, I'm not going to die. Fine, she'll make other 5 people hate me. That's it. But my fear is the same, that rejection, loneliness, and heartbreak means that I am being excluded, I'm being kicked out. So it's basically your brain telling you that there's danger, 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 danger. Where you're being rejected, there's danger. Now the other things that we know about, we've learned about rejection is we hate being rejected by people we love, for sure. That's not a new finding, we all know that. But it turns out that we also hate being rejected by people we are indifferent towards. That's why when you are in a market and people you don't even know start looking at you funny, you're like, what's going on? Is everything okay? But imagine our trans community, our Hijra community goes through that every day. Every single day. Because gender fear is so big in our society that if you're a woman and you're dressed like a man, or you're a man and you're dressed like a woman, it hurts. It hurts so bad. But it also turns out that we hate rejection from people we even hate. I don't hate you. We want to be loved by people we hate. We want to be accepted by people we hate. That is the human condition that we have. And isn't it interesting? Rejection is just so beautiful. It tells you so much. That even if I hate you, but please don't hate me. Like when we get rejected, we suddenly realize that we suddenly forget that I also reject people. Wouldn't my sex life be rocking if I didn't reject anyone? It would be amazing. I wouldn't even need Grindr at all. Right, now guilt, or as we call the fuel for Indian parents. Indian parents, like some bikes run on petrol, Indian parents run on guilt. But guilt is something that you will all experience, and guilt, and all of these are healthy emotions as well. By the way, I do not want to demonize these emotions. Failure, the fear of failure will let you work, but if it is too much, it's all about the optimum. It's all about the intensity of how much you're feeling it. The fear of rejection will actually let you be a nicer person. People who say, I don't care about anyone, are the worst human beings to live with. They actually don't care about how you feel. They will end up saying things that you'll be like, why did you say that? Because I don't care about how you feel. So rejection is an important social lubricant. Guilt is required.
Stay in the present.
Yes, absolutely. Lynn is like, you are here for a lecture. So guilt is a very, very important emotion. It keeps us away from harm. It keeps us away from, you know who does not feel guilt because of a brain defect? Psychopaths. No, and they just don't. The serial killers who are largely, like 99% of serial killers are psychopaths. They just don't feel guilt or remorse in hurting anyone. It just doesn't occur. There's a brain defect. For example, there was a guy in Toronto, where I live, who murdered 16 gay men. 16. And in a very methodical way, he had a standard operating procedure. He would call them home, drug them, draw their blood out, dismember them, and put their the organs in different people's houses. He just enjoyed it for the thrill of it. He never felt guilt. For us to even slap someone, we're just like, oh, I can't. This guilt is really, really important. It's only what are you being guilted for. A lot of us as gay men and trans women and lesbian women, we are guilted for being ourselves. I have sat in my office day in and day out, and I've heard people saying that my mom says that she's going to kill herself. Says that she's going to kill herself if I don't get married. That is a problem. I've heard 6-year-olds come and tell me their mother's telling them, please eat this. I've made this for you. What do you want me to die? You're not eating this. You want me to die? And that 6-year-old cannot understand that the mother is joking. For a 6-year-old, it means that the primary caregiver is going to die. That means they are the bad human being who will kill their parents. A lot of us can't even choose our own careers because our parents will die. If this was reported, your child will be taken away from you by social services for neglect and abuse, which we just call parenting here. That is not to say that everything about Indian parenting is bad. Of course not. Of course not. That'd be stupid to even think that. But there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that we need to be very careful about. Heartbreak. Heartbreak is the most interesting. People have changed. This is one of the most monumental things that will happen to you. And beautiful things as well, and I'll tell you why. Because of divorces and breakups, people have changed houses, people have changed cities, people have committed suicide, people have gone through so much transformation. People have sometimes even, like a lot of gay couples and lesbian couples, when they split up with their partners, they're like, all right, I'll marry whoever you want me to marry. Heartbreak is one of the most intense feelings that you will ever experience. No other feeling, not even death of a loved one, not even death of a mother, because that is final. There's no hope in it. Hope, which is considered a very beautiful emotion acontextually, is very destructive after a breakup. Because when someone dies, there's no hope of them coming back. But when someone breaks up with you, there is hope, and that hope is the last to die. And all of you will experience heartbreak. There is no immunity to it. So the whole idea is, but a beautiful, beautiful poet from Tamil, from Tamil Nadu, said, you have to break your, and I obviously can't speak Tamil, but the English translation was, your heart has to be broken into a million pieces before you know the real shape of it. And Rumi said, the flute needs to have a hole in its heart for it to make music. You have to go through pain. That pain is the most important pain that you'll ever go through. I get emotional just talking about it. But another beautiful Indian wisdom says, if you have to wade in the waters of pain, which is up till your ankles, hope, that till your knees is wisdom and till your waist is compassion. Compassion for yourself and wisdom, not just emotions, like wisdom, real wisdom. Then you'll be able to wade in the waters of pain, even chained. It's okay. Pain is beautiful in many ways. A heartbreak will make you grow like nothing else would. Troubles with a lover will make you a person that you never thought you would be, for one reason. Psychological visibility. Now what does this mean? With this fancy word, what does this mean? It means that only another human being can show you parts about you that you were never aware of. A friend can also show you a lot about you. A friend can also say, I think you're like this a little. Who loves you? But someone who knows not just your naked body, but your naked soul, reflects things back at you, about you. Tells you that you are afraid of, you love, you're scared of, you're anxious about. All of these sentences are finished the most with a lover. Because a lover is the one that relieves my loneliness, even however briefly. That's why sex feels so good. We can all masturbate. We can all have toys to put inside our bodies. But why sex with another human being is so different for us? Because for those 10 minutes, there is a biological evidence. I don't need words. There's a biological evidence that I'm needed, I'm wanted, I am desired. For those 10 minutes, and half an hour if you're lucky. For those 10 minutes, someone is telling you that I'm focusing on you and relieving my ever-present feeling of loneliness. You will always be lonely. For one reason, because no one lives in your brain but you. What is the feeling of loneliness, of not being understood? But that's what happens. How many of you think your parents understand you? Okay, all right, okay. But what is our first experience at love? Not just romantic love, love, our parents. When the primary caregiver doesn't understand me and I feel lonely in the presence of a primary caregiver, but they also feel lonely, they're human beings, they were born 30 years or 20 years before you. They don't live your world and you don't live their world. Mothers can feel so lonely because all they're looked at as a source, a provider, and never someone who needs to be understood, who has desires. We humanize our family. We have to. We have to. Our mothers, our fathers, our mothers are fathers, not human beings. They can't have sexual desires. When widow remarriage was introduced in India by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the first people to oppose it were the sons of those widows. How can my mother have desires? How can my father have desires? How can my sister have desires? Because it is in my survival interest to look at you as my provider first, than to look at you as human beings who will leave me one day. So that's what makes loneliness so important. Rebuke. You will have people shouting at you every now and then at work, in love relationships, in hate relationships. You will have people shouting at you. And that creates that potentially can cause emotional if you're not too careful. Rumination and brooding. How many of you think you overthink? How many of you overthink? How many of you don't think at all? Okay, that's not possible. Okay. Right. Now see, overthinking can be good and bad, both. Our brain is one of those organs, like our brain, our kidneys, our lungs and our heart never stops. They never stop, regardless of whether you're sleeping or not. Okay? You overthink in two ways. One is adaptive, the other one is maladaptive. Adaptive thinking is, I think about something and I come out stronger on the other side. I have now more skills to deal with what was going on in my life. Maladaptive thinking is I'm just stuck in the thinking and I'm anxious and I'm causing more emotional injuries. I'm not healing from an emotional injury. I'm causing more emotional injury. When are you the most angriest? When are you the angriest? Yeah.
when I'm trying to explain something and people are not able to understand that time.
Right? I am trying to explain why you're not understanding me. Gets me really upset because I'm thinking you're doing something wrong. You're not understanding me. Either I am wrong or you are wrong. Something's going wrong. Do you want to? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, entirely. Whatever you feel free to move out and in. That's absolutely fine. So, and thinking about something, you will lie awake. How many of you think you get good sleep? Okay. How many of you think that you sometimes wake up even more tired than you went to bed? So many clients. No. Okay. No. Okay. Jokes apart. And dramatically speaking, not academically speaking, I'm being very gay right now, dramatically speaking. Your subconscious takes its revenge when you're sleeping. When you're asleep, your conscious is shut. Your subconscious mind is taking its revenge for not taking care of it. Your subconscious is saying that you did not take care of the injuries that has been happening to me, so I'll give you bad dreams. I will make you even more tired. Imagine this. Can we go? No, I think. Okay, anyway, imagine this. If you had a cut, okay, and it's bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and there's no clot on it, there's no truncating of it, and it keeps bleeding, will you ignore it? You can't ignore it. You will die if it keeps bleeding, however small the cut is. If it bleeds for more than 16 hours, you will die. But we ignore a lot of our emotional injuries. We do. So what happens is, we have 3 reactions to emotional injuries. 1, denial, complete denial. The complete denial of anything has happened. When we have an emotional injury, the first thing that we will say, nothing's happened, I'm okay, I'm fine, nothing has happened. The second thing that we can say towards emotional injury is, it's all my fault. I'm so stupid, I should have seen this, or it's all your fault. So we react to emotional injuries not with, it has happened, now let's address it. We say, nothing's happened, or all is it my fault, or all of it is your fault. And that only perpetuates and makes the emotional injury bigger. Loss and trauma. Regardless of how good a friend you've made, how close you are to your mom and dad, how close you are to your lover, people will leave or die. You will make people, like, you may make great friends in Chennai and they may leave Chennai, or they may die, and if they die, they leave Chennai. So the whole idea is that you will experience loss in your life. You will experience a lot of trauma in life. For example, young mothers who lose their kids, they experience trauma. Gay people who are kicked out of their houses. Almost every trans man or a trans woman who has been kicked out of the house experiences that trauma every day. Bouts of low self-esteem. How many of you think that Sushmita Sen is slightly prettier than Aishwarya? Okay. How many of you think Aishwarya is prettier than Sushmita? How many of you don't have opinions? Okay. So the whole idea is that the 20% of the room just rejected Miss World. So, imagine if Aishwarya or Sushmita were here, obviously I won't ask this question then, but if somehow they see this recording and they will experience this a little bit. But depending on their personality type, they could be like, sure, it's their opinion. I mean, people can have opinions about beauty. This is a rational thing to say. Have you looked at yourself? How dare you say things like that? So it's that, or they might be like, yeah, I think she's more pretty than I am. Yeah, I think. So it's again, you see the emotional injury doing three things again. But the fourth one is possible by taking care of yourself, that people can have opinions about me. People can reject me. It's okay. I've rejected people and they've lived after. Okay. Now, the results of emotional injuries are the following: depression, anxiety. Now, why have I written loneliness as an emotional injury and the result of emotional injury? Because loneliness is self-reinforcing. Isolation breeds more isolation. And loneliness is particularly interesting because of its subjective nature. There is no way to measure loneliness. If you think you're lonely, you're lonely. Now, I'd like this one line to be translated into Tamil, because I don't know how many of you speak Hindi, but in Hindi we say, अकेला होना और अकेला महसूस करना अलग बात है. अकेला और अकेलापन अलग है. Being alone does not necessarily mean being lonely. You can be alone, read a book, have meaningful conversations, blah blah blah, find meaning in your work, and you may not experience loneliness as much. But loneliness has something to do with not being with too many people. It has something to do with that, but not all of it. You can be lonely in a marriage. That loneliness is even worse than being actually alone. You can be lonely in a party. Yeah, or having many friends, or having your Instagram photographs and everything, but you can still be lonely. You're getting my point? So, 50% of adults report being lonely, close to 50%, 46 to 50% adults report being lonely. That means every second person that you meet will experience loneliness every now and then. And loneliness also weakens your relationship muscles. The ability, the skills to deal with another human being reduce lonely for way too long. Then you don't want to deal with other human beings because it becomes work. You're getting my point? That's why people who've been lonely for way too long, they're not very good at dating. They've been lonely. On the first date, they're either coming on too strong or they're too cynical. On the first day, it's like, so how many kids are we going to have? What are we going to name them? Oh my God, where are we going to live? It's either that or noticing everything wrong that the other person's doing. Oh, he sat like this. Oh, he ate that. How could he order that with that? Who does that? So you either become cynical about human beings, or you think I'm unlovable, or you think people are garbage. You go between these two extremes if you're feeling lonely, and you don't even know you're feeling lonely because your reaction is to deny, I'm not feeling lonely. Tu hoga lonely. I'm not lonely. Okay, no, we have to go through some of those, please. And then it could also have compulsive dependence on behavior and substances. You know, there are some behaviors that we do which are not very ideal for us. You're not kids, I don't need to go through those behaviors. But substances, you know, you could use far more alcohol than you need. I always say drink alcohol when you're happy. Don't drink it when you're sad. Just don't drink it when you're sad. I'm not one of those religious leaders or one of those gurus who would be like, alcohol is bad, period. No, alcohol can be fine every now and then. It's okay. Social smoking, fine. But if you're smoking because your boss said something to you and you have to, that's the only way you know how to deal with stress. Please invest every last cent that you have in counseling. Go talk to someone. Please talk to someone. We spend so much more time on our hair, our teeth. We think more about the shampoo that we're going to use than what's happening to us. Impaired social relationships. You become very negative. You're always bitching about others. You're always trying to find negativity everywhere. Everyone pisses you off. The world and its mother hates you. Mood swings. Then you will see a lot of mood swings like, I'm feeling good, but I don't know what's going on. I'm not feeling good. And then I was feeling good 1 hour ago and nothing has happened, but I'm not feeling good. And then I don't know what's going on. So the whole idea is mood swings can be, and sometimes mood swings are just because of our biology. Like we are on some kind of hormones or with some kind of pills. Like a lot of people who are transitioning from female to male or male to female, they'll be on HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, and they would feel emotions that have no necessary triggers to them, and that's okay. And this is part of the counseling. Anyone who does counseling for trans people need to have this in their skills of how to make them deal with mood swings, because there is nothing to change but to accept. If you are a trans man, you will feel more angry than others. You are taking testosterone. And if you are a trans woman and you're taking a lot of estrogen, you will feel quote unquote moody. There's nothing, this is not being politically correct and incorrect, and this is their biological reality. I don't care what your political reality is. Biologically, if you're going to take hormones, it will have effects on your emotions. I don't care if you think gender is a social construct or not. You getting my point? Okay. And aggravate symptoms of existing psychological challenges. So for example, if you might already have predisposition for depression, or if you already have predisposition for bipolarity, or if you have a predisposition for schizophrenia, and if you go through this, so many emotional injuries. Have you ever seen really older people in your life who are negative all the time? But may not be your own relatives. Maybe some people you know. These are the people who've never taken care of their emotions and emotional injury, or they were never educated about it. They're not bad people. Just imagine if the rest of your life you do not take care of your bodies. You eat whatever the hell you want. You do not exercise at all. You do not do any care for your body. And then you expect at 75 I should be fit as a fiddle. You're not going to be. Nature doesn't care for you. It has its rules. You follow the rules and that's it. That's why you will see that a lot of Indian traditions do not talk about heaven and hell as much. It's karma. Whatever you do, there is a consequence for that. Then of course we take it to its illogical extreme of karma of your mother and karma of your father, and that's why, no, your own karma. What are you doing? That's what makes sense. That an action will have a reaction and a lack of action will have a reaction. Everything has a consequence. You cannot escape it. Now, we've already discussed this difference between depression and anxiety. Depression comes from thinking a lot about the past. Anxiety comes from thinking a lot about the future. Okay, does anyone have any question about this slide? Okay, we can move forward. Then we spoke about loneliness, that loneliness is a subjective experience. Because you feel lonely, that does not mean you're bad in any way. It just means your biology is different from others. Please talk to someone. Talk to someone, figure out what's going on with you. Okay? Like we said, 46% people, yeah, that's okay. Also, notice your challenges. Your parents, or a lot of you may be parents yourself, your parents at the maximum could compare themselves to 5 cousins or 5 other people to the houses living next to them, correct? Today you can compare yourself with anyone on the internet. You will always not be good enough. You will always not be thin enough, muscular enough, prettier enough, for that next person, because the comparison has gone out of hand. Like, for example, you do not envy, you're not jealous of the Queen Elizabeth. You're not like, oh my God, why is her like crown bigger than mine? Because you know it's silly to compare yourselves to Queen Elizabeth. But you're comparing yourselves to celebrities who are in the reach but not quite. I'm sorry I didn't do my homework enough to learn the name of Tamil celebrities, but you know, like, you can substitute Kim Kardashian for someone else. So what is it giving us? It's Facebook and Instagram, if you're not too careful, is creating the amount of emotional injuries that you can't even imagine. And repeated every day, with no foolproof plan to take care of yourself. Yes. So 46 to 50% of adults would feel lonely every now and then. Chronic loneliness is really bad. It's so bad that it can shave off many years of your life. It can reduce your immunity system, suppress it. It can make your bones weaker. If you feel lonely for a long time, it can make your bones weaker. It's like smoking a pack of cigarettes every day for the rest of your life. That's how bad chronic loneliness is. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Loneliness is bad. That does not mean that you need a lover. That does not mean that you need a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or it just means that you need, if you're feeling lonely, you need to talk about why you're feeling lonely. What are your ideas about life? What are your fears? Now this is the guy, his name is Guy Winch. He's a psychologist, and he wrote this really beautiful book called Emotional First Aid, and he says consequences of lacking emotional hygiene are much worse than lacking dental hygiene. After all, what would you rather lose, a tooth or your mind? Because your dental hygiene is as important as your mental hygiene. Dental, mental, please never forget. Okay, could we? Thank you. Now what do? You've just talked about problems right now. There's three approaches to mental health. 3 approaches. 1, you think about what you're thinking. What are your thoughts about your own self? Are you kind to yourself? Are you using words that you would use with a friend? A lot of the times when we have a cut, we don't take another knife and make it bigger, do we? But every time we have an emotional injury, we make it bigger by either telling ourselves it doesn't exist, or it's my fault, or it's someone else's fault. For example, you go out on a date and the guy gets up in the middle of the date and says, this is not working for me, I need to go. You'd be like, of course this, and now you're talking to yourself and saying, of course this didn't work for him. I'm not muscular enough. I'm not pretty enough. Look at my hips. Look at my lack of this. And my nose is weird. And so you go, imagine if a friend came and told you, like, this happened to me. You'd be like, what an asshole who left. You're not going to tell your friend, yeah, you're not pretty. How will people like you? But you tell yourself that continually. You're getting my point? So don't make the language that you're using with yourself is very, very important. Please do not use bad language with yourself or with others. Just 100% acceptance of others and self. 100% acceptance does not mean agreement. I don't agree with what you're doing, but you are there. I don't agree with a lot of my own habits, but I accept them. Acceptance does not mean I will not work at them to change them. Acceptance just means I will not ask the question, why am I like this? I will say, I am like this and I need to work with it. Does that make sense? And life. Please don't have negative views about life. Life doesn't like it. Just realistic. don't go into having positive view. Everything, get up in the morning, wash your face, everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to be lovely, nothing's going to go wrong. No, please, you can't live in rainbows in life. You can have rainbow flags, but life is slightly more complicated than that. Just prepare yourself. It's called preventative mental health. You're preventing already, like you do with nutrition. You eat well so that you don't fall sick. You think well so you don't have emotional injuries. Then feelings. Now feelings and emotions, as we talked about, is being used almost interchangeably, correct? And we don't need to necessarily correct that. So how do you correct the emotional reality, the chemical reality of your body? Is only through two things. You have to physically work out. There is no substitute for physical workout. You have to have 20 minutes of workout 3 days a week at least. 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week. If you look at me and you say, oh, but I don't have time, I will sarcastically look back at you and say, your last name is not Ambani. If you don't have time for yourself, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. And you have to meditate. There is no way around it. Do you know a lot of the times we don't meditate? Obviously, people try to do things that are like meditation, which is alcohol. Alcohol slows your brain down. Alcohol does exactly what meditation would do, but with addiction. Marijuana. A lot of you have heard of marijuana. How many of you are aware of chemical sex parties or chemical sex, chemsex, high fun within the gay community? Okay. So that is when, do you know the drug used is called methadone? You have methadone and then you have sex with someone. Because what methadone does is it short circuits your brain into thinking it's loved. It releases so much dopamine and serotonin, two really happy hormones, and it makes you feel for that time that you are loved. And what do we want? To be loved. But that, again, I said, is a joy that is not very trustworthy. But meditation is our best hope, and we will do a certain, like a 2 or 3 minute meditation quickly. Behaviors. Pro-self behavior and pro-others behavior. Have a behavior in which you're not hurting yourself too much. Behaviorally speaking, not just thought. You're not always eating bad, always not exercising, always being negative. Like I said, you are complex, so you will be negative and positive. Just make sure that you're living life in percentages, and the percentage of negativity is slightly lower, slightly, than positivity. And that's what will make it realistic for you. Pro-social behaviors. Don't hurt others. It hurts you. When you sit home and scheme, I mean, we love it. Look at our tele-series. It's like 3 times. One is not enough. One is not enough. I have to hate you 3 times. So the idea is the more you're negative to others, you hurt yourself in return. You cannot slap someone else without your hand hurting. Remember that always. If you don't like someone, don't like their behavior, stop talking to them. That's it. If they're not important enough to you, you don't have to go out in the world to prove how bad they are, or open your own heart and show, see what you've done. Don't do that. You're just repeating, increasing emotional injury. With that said, let's just do a 3-minute meditation, right? Now sit in a way that your feet are planted on the floor. Your back is not too stiff and not too slouchy. You can take the backrest if you like. Your chair's backrest is fine, absolutely fine. Sorry? Sure.
My feet aren't touching the ground.
Right. Now, now just listen to my voice and close your eyes. And don't worry, when your eyes open, your wallets will still be there. Okay? So just close your eyes and just listen to my voice and do what I'm asking you to do. That's all. Close your eyes. Breathing in through your nose. It's okay. If you can't close your eyes, just lower your gaze. Lower your eyes. Breathing in through your nose. Audibly. They can hear your breath. And out through your nose. Breathing in and out. As normally as you can. Not labored. As normal as you can. Observe your body sitting on the chair in time and space here. You're here right now. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to happen. You're just observing where you are. Observe if you're tired. Observe if you're bored or restless. No thought is bad. Even the traffic outside, the sound of the traffic is part of your experience. Relax the muscles next to your eyes as much as you can. Breathing in and out. Relax your jaw and release your tongue. Now with each breath, relax your forehead. Breathing in and out. Relaxing your shoulders as much as you can, as if you're breathing into your shoulders. Breathing in and out. Now at 1, 2, and 3, you're going to take a deep breath in, which is very audible. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3. And out. Observe your entire body touching the chair, your clothes touching your body, every physical sensation. And now whenever you're ready, very gently open your eyes. Very gently open your eyes. How many of you feel traumatized? Very few. How many of you feel slightly calm? See, it was not even 3 minutes, it was 2 minutes. And your brain's already saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Calm is thank you, your brain saying thank you. Pranayam, if you want, see, you would never hear the word God or spirituality in my talks. But pranayam is amazing, do it if you can. Yoga is your best friend if you can do it. Just engage with your body. Why? For one reason. Go, no. You're always, like we said, in future or past. Your body and your breath brings you in the present. As in Hindi we say as well, sharir and shwas. Because you can't take a past breath or you can't take a future breath. You can only breathe in the present. And breathing does not create memories at all. There's no breath. Your body, your brain does not store memories from breathing. Like, how many breaths did you take? You'll be like, I don't know. I'll have to count them. In the same way, all your 5 senses are in the present. You see in the present. You smell in the present. You taste in the present. You hear in the present. You don't do all of this in the past or the future. So the more you're in touch with your body and your brain, the better it is for you. That's why I always suggest, don't go towards spirituality as much as just do mindfulness meditation. There's a lot of it on YouTube. You have 0 excuses to stay ignorant. 0. Today is the time when you have so much more information available than there ever was. I'm not trying to ask you to find yourself or God or anything. Just meditate every now and then. Just look at your breath. being distracted, do not try to make it thoughtless. You will never have a thoughtless brain. Just observe the thoughts that there are there. Don't engage with them. Come back to your breath. Come back to your breath. Very gently. Very gently. That's what you have to do. Last slide, please. Now, this is what you have to do as an immediate thing. When the doctor is not available, when the counselor is not available, your mother is not available, your friend is not available to talk to you, and you've had an emotional injury. Nara, notice. Notice the emotion that you're feeling. Name it. Name the emotion. The moment you name the emotion, you've gone from not just feeling it, but thinking about it. Accept whatever you're feeling. Don't try to avoid it. Accept, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling jealous, I'm feeling anxious. Whatever you're feeling, accept it. Tell yourself acceptance doesn't mean agreement or action. It just means acceptance. Then reevaluate, what are you thinking? What is that you're thinking? I ask a lot of my clients, how do you feel? They say, I feel she cheated on me. I think that's what you think. You feel sad. Don't confuse feelings with thinking. That's where your grace lies. That's where your hope lies. Not confusing thinking with feeling. Then act. Then make your action plan. This is what you have to do immediately. But if this is not working over a period of time, please talk to someone. Don't ignore your health. With all of this, I wish you an amazing, amazing mental health. Thank you very much. It's open for questions now if you want to. If you want to leave, you can leave, but it's open to questions now.